Niki had been a part of Vian's life for as long as she could remember. He was her older brother, childhood best friend, the boy who used to come to their home almost every day when they were younger. Their families had grown closer over the years, and eventually their friendship became something much deeper between the two families. Now Nikki was 28, the heir of one of the most powerful Mafia families. Everyone in the city knew Nikki as the cold and dangerous man. He rarely smiled, he rarely spoke more than necessary, and his presence alone was enough to make people straighten their backs. But around Vian, there had always been something different about him. Nikki had noticed her long before she ever noticed him. He remembered the little things about her without even trying. He knew which dessert she liked, which flowers she preferred, what kind of movies made her cry, and even how she tucked her hair behind her ear whenever she became nervous. His feelings had only grown stronger as they got colder. Vian, on the other hand, had needed time to process the idea. She had never disliked Nicky, in fact, she respected him, but there was something about him that always made her nervous. Perhaps it was the way he looked at people. It was his reputation, and perhaps it was simply because she had never known how to behave around someone like him. Nicky had noticed it years ago. He noticed how she avoided sitting too close to him. He noticed how she would suddenly find something interesting on her phone whenever their eyes met, and he never forced her to change, not yet. One quiet afternoon, Nikki arrived at Ryan's house to meet her brother. He walked through the front door after being greeted by one of the house staff and looked around the familiar living room. He took out his phone and called her brother. The call went unanswered. Nicky frowned slightly before checking his messages. His best friend had apparently left for an unexpected meeting and had forgotten to tell him. Nicky sighed and slipped his phone into his pocket. He could leave, but then he heard quiet footsteps coming from hallway. Ryan appeared. She stopped the moment she saw him. For a second, neither of them spoke. Ryan was wearing a simple, comfortable outfit, her hair loosely falling around her shoulders. She looked at him, then toward the front door, as if silently hoping he would say he was leaving. Nicky noticed. Nicky, your brother isn't home. Nicky, I know. Ryan looked at him curiously. Ryan, then you should probably wait for him somewhere else. The moment the words left her mouth, she realized how this sounded. Her eyes widened slightly. Ryan, I mean, Nikki raised an eyebrow. Nikki, you want me to leave? Ryan immediately shook her head. A tiny smile appeared at the corner of his lips. Nikki, good. He walked over to the sofa and sat down comfortably. Ryan remained standing. She had expected him to leave. Instead, he seemed completely comfortable staying there. Nikki looked at her. Nikki, come here. Ryan blinked. She glanced at the empty sofa beside him. Nikki, sit. Ryan hesitated before slowly walking toward the sofa. She sat at the very end, leaving a noticeable amount of space between them. Nikki looked at the distance, then at her, then back at the distance. Nikki, why are you sitting all the way over there? Ryan looked down at her hands. Ryan, I'm comfortable here. Nikki, of course you are. He didn't say anything else. Instead, he leaned back against the sofa and started checking something on his phone. Ryan slowly relaxed. Maybe this wasn't so bad. She picked up her phone and began scrolling through it. For several minutes, the room remained completely quiet, but Nicky wasn't really concentrating on his phone. He watched the way her eyebrows furrowed when she read something interesting. He watched her lips curved into a tiny smile when she saw a funny video. He had missed being this close to her, even if she was sitting several inches away. Eventually, Ryan stood up. Ryan, I'm going to get some water. She had barely taken 2 steps when Nikki was stopped her. She turned around. Nikki was looking directly at her. Nikki, come here. Ryan hesitated. Ryan, why? Nikki placed his phone on the table. Nikki, just come here. There was something about his calm voice that made her slowly walk back toward him. She stopped in front of sofa. Nikki looked up at her. Then his hand reached out and gently caught her wrist. Once breath caught. Before she could understand what he was doing, Nikki pulled her toward him. She stumbled forward and landed directly on his lap. Ryan froze. Her hands instinctively rested against his shoulders. Her eyes widened as she looked at him. Ryan, Nikki, Nikki, there. Ryan's cheek immediately turned warm. Ryan, what are you doing? Nikki, you would not sit beside me. Ryan stared at him. Ryan, so you pulled me onto your lap? Nikki, yes. The simple answer made her even more flustered. She tried to move away, but his hand gently tightened around her waist. Nikki leaned slightly closer. Nikki, relax. Ryan swallowed. Nikki, I'm not going to do anything you don't want. His voice had lost its teasing tone. It was soft now. Ryan slowly looked into his eyes. For the first time she noticed how different his expression was when he looked at her. The coldness everyone else knew wasn't there. Nikki lifted one hand and gently moved a strand of hair away from her face. Nikki, you always do this. Ryan, do what? Nikki, run away whenever I get close. She looked down shyly. Ryan, I don't run away. Nikki smiled. Nikki, you do. Ryan, maybe you just notice too much. Nikki, I notice everything about you. Her heart skipped. She looked back at him. There was no teasing in his eyes anymore. He meant it. Ryan suddenly became very aware of how close they were. She could feel his arm around her waist and the warmth of his body beneath her. His face was only a few inches away. Nikki noticed her cheeks turning pink. Ryan, I'm not. Nikki, you are. Ryan, it's warm. Nikki glanced toward the air conditioner. Nikki, it's 20 degrees. Ryan became even more embarrassed. Nikki laughed softly. It was a rare sound, and somehow hearing him laugh made her forget how intimidating he usually seemed. Nikki noticed immediately. His expression softened. Nikki, better? Ryan nodded. Ryan, a little. Nikki, good. His thumb gently brushed over her waist. Nikki, then stay. Ryan looked at him. Ryan, until my brother comes back? Nikki's eyes held hers. Nikki, maybe longer. She smiled. Neither of them knew it yet, but that quiet afternoon was going to change everything because for Nikki, this wasn't the beginning of his feelings. He had loved her for years, but for Ryan, it was the first time she began to wonder if the man she had always been nervous around was actually the person she could feel safest with. Ryan stayed on Nikki's lap for another few minutes. Strangely, the longer she stayed there, the less nervous she felt. Nikki didn't tease her anymore, simply sat there, letting her get used to being close to him. After a while, Ryan quietly said, you can let me go now. Nikki looked at her. Nikki, do you want me to? Ryan hesitated. Ryan, I don't know. His answer made her smile too. That was the first time Ryan realized something important. Nikki might look intimidating to everyone else, but he was always careful with her. When her brother finally returned home, he walked into the living room and stopped when he saw them sitting together. Brother, well, this is new. Ryan immediately stood up. Her brother laughed. Brother, I didn't even ask. Nikki simply leaned back against the sofa, looking completely relaxed. Nikki, your sister is getting used to me. Her brother looked between them and smiled. Brother, that's interesting. Ryan quickly disappeared into the kitchen, embarrassed. From the living room, she could hear Nikki laughing quietly. That night, Ryan found herself thinking about him more than she wanted to admit. She remembered the way he had looked at her, the way he had spoken softly when she became nervous, and most of all, the way he had told her that he noticed everything about her. The next morning, she received a message from him. Ryan stared at her phone. Ryan, for what? His reply came almost immediately. Nikki, our first date. Her heart skipped. Ryan, you could have asked. Nikki, would you have said no? She smiled at her phone. Ryan, maybe. Nikki, then I'm glad I didn't ask. At 7 that evening, Ryan walked downstairs wearing a simple dress. She expected Nikki to be waiting outside, but when she reached the living room, she found him standing there with a small bouquet of her favorite flowers. She stopped. Nikki looked at her from head to toe before smiling. Nikki, you look beautiful. Vine lowered her eyes. Vine, thank you. He held the flowers toward her. Nikki, these are for you. Vine took them. Vine, how did you know these were my favorite? Nikki looked at her as if the answer was obvious. Nikki, I have known you since you were a child. She smiled softly. They went to a quiet restaurant away from the crowded city. Nicky had chosen a private table near the window because he knew Ryan preferred peaceful places. Throughout dinner, she slowly became more comfortable. They talked about childhood memories, funny things her brother had done, and the strange things Nicky used to get into when he was younger. Ryan laughed when he told her about the time her brother had convinced him to climb onto the roof just to retrieve a football. Ryan, you actually did that? Nikki, your brother said you would be impressed. She laughed. Ryan, I didn't even know. Nikki smiled. Nikki, I was hoping you would notice. She looked at him. Ryan, you liked me even then? Nikki became quiet for a moment. His eyes stayed on hers. Nikki, I think I did. Her smile slowly faded into a shy expression. Ryan, but I was just your best friend's little sister, Nikki. That was the problem. Ryan, why? Nikki, because I had to wait. She didn't know what to say. For the first time, she understood that his feelings were not something that had appeared after their families arranged their marriage. He had been carrying them for years. After dinner, Nikki drove her home. Neither of them spoke much during the journey, but the silence was not uncomfortable anymore. When they reached her house, Ryan unfastened her seatbelt. Ryan, thank you for tonight. Nikki, did you enjoy it? She nodded. Ryan, I did. He smiled. Nikki, good. Ryan opened the car door, but before stepping out, she turned back. Ryan, Nikki? Nikki, hmm? Ryan, I'm not that scared of you as much anymore. His expression softened immediately. Nikki, that's all I wanted. She smiled and stepped out, but before she could close the door, Nikki gently called her name. Nikki. Ryan. She looked back. He stepped out of the car and walked toward her. Ryan's heart began beating faster as he stepped in front of her. Nikki, can I kiss you? She stared at him. For a second she did not know what to say. Then she gave him a small nod. Nikki slowly leaned closer, his hand gently resting against her cheek as he gave her a soft kiss. It was brief and gentle, nothing like the intimidating man everyone else knew. When he pulled back, Vine looked at him with flushed cheeks. Nikki smiled. Nikki, good night, fiancé. Vine smiled shyly. Vine, good night. She walked inside, but before reaching her room, she stopped and touched her lips. For the first time, she was not thinking about how frightening Nikki's reputation was. She was thinking about his smile, his gentle voice, the way he remembered everything about her, and the way her heart had raced when he kissed her. Meanwhile, outside, Nikki watched the light in her bedroom turn on. He smiled to himself. For years he had waited for the day she would stop looking at him with nervous eyes, and tonight he finally saw it happen. She wasn't running away anymore. She was slowly coming closer, and Nicky knew he would spend the rest of his life making sure she never regret choosing him. A few months after their marriage, it was almost impossible to believe that Ryan had once been scared of Nikki, the same girl who used to sit as far away from him as possible, now treated the most feared mafia player in the city like her personal assistant. One morning, Nikki was getting ready for an important meeting when Ryan walked into the bedroom wearing an oversized shirt. Ryan, Nikki, he immediately turned around. Nikki, hmm? Ryan pointed toward the bed. Ryan, come here. Nikki looked at his watch. Nikki, baby, I have a meeting in 20 minutes. Ryan crossed her arms. Ryan, and he stared at her for a moment before sighing and walking toward her. Nikki, what does my wife want? Ryan smiled proudly. Ryan, I want a hug. Nikki immediately pulled her into his arms. Nikki, anything else? Ryan, kiss. He kissed her forehead. Ryan frowned. Ryan, not there. Nikki laughed before giving her a soft kiss on the lips. Nikki, happy? Ryan, very. He started walking toward the door when she called him again. Ryan, Nikki. He stopped. Nikki, what now? Ryan, come home early. Nikki smiled. Nikki, I'll try. Ryan, no, come home early. He raised both hands in surrender. Nikki, yes, ma'am. She giggled. The man who would make an entire room fall silent with one look had absolutely no power against his wife. And honestly, Nikki didn't want any, because the little girl who once would not even sit beside him was now the only person who could order him around, steal his clothes, and demand his hugs, and interrupt his meetings.